Hi guys, thank you for joining the live stream. Today we have a legendary journalist with us who is famous for bringing out in front of us all the research and all the reporting as much as possible about the Morichjhapi massacre done when the CPIM was in power, which almost nobody knew about until a few years back, which most even CPIM supporters don't know much about. People who have lived here who even hate the CPIM, even they don't know about. It was a complete cover up, probably the most successful cover up of anything in Indian history. And he has written 3 books, which you can see in the thumbnail and in the description box. I hope you all buy those books and read them. His most recent book, which released last year, was also about the plight of Bangladeshi Hindus, which was inaugurated, which we actually did a live stream on, reacting to that inauguration of where Sanjeev Sanyal and Shekhar Gupta were also present, which he co-wrote. His second book was about the 2021 elections that happened in Bengal during the assembly elections, and his first book was on Morichjapi. So thank you for joining us, sir, Deep Halder, sir.
Thank you, Niranjan. Pleasure. Thank you.
And interestingly, I learned most about your all the hardships that you had to go through for researching Morichjapi from Ross Mallik's research paper. He has
Yeah.
talked about you extensively.
Okay. Yes, Ross Malik is a pioneer in this
Hmm.
because he has been putting out academic journals on Morichjapi for a very long time.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, those journals and those academic papers that he wrote very painstakingly did
Hmm.
not receive the kind of response that they should have.
Hmm.
In this context, let me mention Mr. Vivek Debroy,
Hmm. Hmm.
who is an economic advisor to the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
He told me during the book launch of Blood Island, Oral History of Morichjapi Massacre, which is my book on Morichjapi,
Hmm.
that it actually says something about the Bengali Bhadralok class,
Hmm.
that it's not as if they were not aware. It's not as if they did not know that something so horrific like Morichjapi Massacre took place
Hmm.
in the years 1978-79. Because, initially there were some reports, even in papers like Anandabazar Patrika,
Hmm.
okay? Some reports, of course, then there was a press gag. So those
Hmm.
reports stopped. But people were aware because, my father, and there were like famous writers like Shunil Ganguly
Hmm.
and other public intellectuals who had gone to Morichjapi when this entire adventure was taking place, where
Hmm.
people almost a lakh at one point of time. I think the population of Morichjapi swelled to almost a lakh.
Hmm. Hmm.
People were coming to that island, uninhabited island, and they were trying to set up a township. So when that was happening, some people were aware. They went there. They came back to Kolkata. They spoke about this adventure that was taking place in Morichjapi. So people also knew that something very horrific is happening
Hmm.
right in that island. It's not as if people did not know.
Okay.
But imagine the Bhadralok class, and that's the point Mr. Vivek Debra harped on,
Hmm.
that you were somehow okay, that because they were not people like us. So you were somehow okay with the massacre of thousands of Dalit Hindu refugees so close to Kolkata. I mean, it's what, 5-6 hours from Kolkata.
Yeah.
So close to Kolkata in West Bengal, independent India. It is 1978, 79. 77, the CPM comes to power. But the Bhadralok class of Kolkata were very weirdly, complacent in maintaining this very weird silence around Morichjapi massacre. So when you talk about Ross Malik and the amount of work he has done
Hmm.
to bring to the fore what happened in Morichjapi, the way those academic papers, journals were ignored
Hmm.
in Kolkata, in
Hmm.
Bengal, by the left liberal ecosystem is amazing. What happened with my book was it came out in August 2019. So I did not see. I mean, there was this complete silence initially when the book came out in Kolkata, in Bengal, until Abhishek Biswas, who I have written my current book with,
Hmm.
wrote almost a full page review of Blood Island in Anandabazar Patrika. But since I was a Delhi journalist and an editor with the India Today group, when my book came out, it got a lot of initial response and very positive criticism from the so-called national media.
Hmm.
So even a platform like the News Laundry,
Hmm.
reviewed the book and give a very good review of the book, and they were also very amazed that something of this magnitude took place in independent India.
Hmm.
So whether it was News Laundry, whether it was Hindustan Times, whether it was the News 18 group, so all major media groups started talking about the book, reviewing the book, interviewing me. It went up to College Times in College Times also. So that they have a weekend supplement. It's called Weekend. They did a interview of me, full page interview of me, and as well as the review of the book. So then it could not be ignored anymore. But it's very sad that it you had to an incident that took place in 78, 79, and after that, there was literature. There were people like Ross Malik, very serious academics who talked about it. But the way the entire incident was ignored till 2019 when my book came out.
Hmm.
So while Blood Island, my book, in a certain sense, mainstreamed the incident.
Hmm.
Okay, but it's not as if people did not write about it. Those
Hmm.
those were ignored completely.
Right.
Sanjeev Sanyal, who you mentioned,
Hmm.
he was there at the ORF book talk,
Hmm.
where the first book talk on Blood Island, and
Okay.
he said, at various literary festivals, he had tried to talk about Marichjhapi.
Hmm.
There would be somebody from the audience who would stand up and shut him down. You know, I will tell you about this academic. I do not have his permission to take the name, so
Okay.
but I'll mention him. He mentioned during the book talk in ORF Kolkata. He said that he is a researcher on he's an environmentalist, so he
Okay.
researches climate change.
Okay.
But since he spends a lot of time, almost 2 decades in Sundarbans, he of course knows about what happened in Morichjapi because he's heard from people. 20 years is a long time to give to one place, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So he said that in his research paper on climate change,
Hmm.
there was a passage,
Hmm.
or of passages on the massacre at Marichjhapi. When he submitted that paper, and this is not in India, this is in the UK.
I see.
There was a professor of Indian origin, his research, the person he submitted his research to, who said the rest of it is fine, but you strike down these 3 passages. But he said, but this is true because I have stayed there, and I have heard it I have heard it from people. I have first-hand account of the massacre from survivors. So why will I strike it down? It's not second-hand information. But
Hmm.
he said, you have to strike it down because I don't want this bits to be published as an academic paper, as a PhD thesis. So imagine how strong the ecosystem is that you had to wait till 2019, till the time my book came out, for Morichjapi to be spoken about the way it is being spoken about now. It should have
Hmm.
happened earlier, because
Right.
like you said, Ross Malik, I have my the highest regards for somebody like Ross Malik,
Hmm.
but people didn't, and serious academic journals have been put out, but
Hmm.
people simply ignored it.
Yeah.
The Bhadralok class, so-called Bhadralok class of Bengal, simply ignored it.
And the specific paper where we found your mention, Bibek Debray's mention, and Shwantip Sannal's mention repeatedly, that paper actually, there Rosmalik points out that, see, all these journals have rejected my paper. They are all mainstream human rights journals, even left-leaning
Yes,
journals.
yes.
And the most fascinating thing that I found from there about you was that you had to, in fact, persuade people that no, it's okay. Tell about your problem. They hear the name Morichjapi and they disappear and shut the door on you. Those sorts of things were going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. There was this. I mean, I don't want to go into specifics
Hmm.
because I believe I come from a lot of privilege. But once the book came out, mostly people from Kolkata, my childhood friends, who of course knew about this because we had discussed that something like this have happened, and who also knew I'm writing the book. When the book became popular, I lost some of my oldest friends from school and college because they said, this now will be misused by the other side. So I said, listen, let's not get into this side and that side and the politics of it. The point is, this happened. This is not a political book. This is a book. You have read the book, right? You know of the book.
Hmm.
This is a book about survivors.
Hmm.
It's not my interpretation of what happened. I was 5 years old when Morichjapi happened. This I have done the hard task of actually trying to find out survivors of the massacre,
Hmm.
and there is discrepancy because people are remembering something that happened 40
Right.
years ago. And
Hmm.
I mention it specifically in the introduction to the book that I did not change it. Even if one chapter you hear somebody saying, okay, so such and such number of people were killed, in the next chapter you may find a higher number or a lesser
Hmm.
number. But I did not change it because this is
Hmm.
people remembering.
Hmm.
But from all the remembrances, which make up all the chapter of the book, various people, all survivors of Morichjapi, which where incidentally there is the voice of a gentleman called Manoranjan Bapari, who currently is a Trinamool Congress MLA, and he had the harshest things to say about Jyoti Basu, who was then the Chief Minister of West Bengal. So, the point is that it's amazing how the story of Morichjapi was completely sidelined. it was not even a footnote of history. It was just,
Yeah.
it was as if it did not happen. It was as if that
Right.
island never existed.
Exactly.
So that's it's really scary how the ecosystem
Yeah.
works.
And Rosmalik's paper, it's not like he has some writing flair or something. He's just mentioning things that happen,
Yes,
and anyone who
yes,
reads it will almost have to forcibly stop themselves from crying.
yes,
It brings you to tears, the things that happened.
yes.
And sir, I guess I'll start with the main question that how can the supporters of CPIM or CPIM have such a grasp on people even today that until your book came out in 2019, let's say, people are still refusing to talk about it. How is this happening?
It's a very good question, Niranjan. It's a question I'm asked time and again. It's a question I don't have an answer to. I think, there is the word I mentioned, Bhadralok class. When you have when you sort of when you have a bunch of people who you kind of agree with socially, you know people who speak a certain way, behave a certain way, quote a certain kind of literature, go to a certain kind of place, right? So if that's the outer layer, okay, then beneath that, if there are horrific things that are taking place, somehow people they befriend, or the class that looks up to them, or the class that think that these are our people, they tend to ignore the horrific things that's happening. Okay, as tragic as it is, as hypocritical as it is kind of true.
Yeah.
You would, if you see somebody who's, let me just say it out loud, if who's more, say, vernacular, not very polished,
Hmm.
okay, and if that person creates something like Morichjapi, is involved with something like Morichjapi, it is very easy to tarnish the image of that person.
Hmm.
But when you
Exactly.
have somebody who speaks in a certain, in a very polished manner, you know who quotes, who quotes foreign playwrights and poets and literatures, and who you kind of agree with, because there's a constant, the reference points of the, say, they agree with you, your cultural reference points, their cultural reference points are the same. Suddenly you talk about Cuba and Vietnam and
Hmm.
Russia, and and the glory days.
Hmm.
Okay, so you think, okay, I mean, even if bunch of these guys are creating some horror in a faraway island,
Hmm.
it might be fake news. Okay, maybe all of it is not true. Everybody in power makes some kind of mistake.
Right.
But if there's somebody you don't agree with, somebody who's very easy for you to look down upon, somebody who's a little vernacular, okay, or somebody who does not have that kind of polish in him or her,
Hmm.
and that person commits something which is you know not even close in magnitude to what the first guy has done, you
Hmm.
will immediately pin him down, and you will say, look, he's so wrong, and this is, he cannot be my representative.
Hmm.
And why, how can he speak in this language, how can he use such cuss word? So I think it is what Vivek Debroy said, and also what Sanjeev Sanyal has kept on saying
Hmm.
uh, through many of his talks.
Hmm.
I think the Bhadralok class is hypocritical to the core. I think they are all about the cover of the book. They won't even open the pages.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that Morichjapi is an instance, of the rank hypocrisy of the Bhadralok class.
Yes.
That they are willing to wine and dine with people who are polished, even if they are mass murderers, but they want to pull down somebody who they think is not up to the mark socially, culturally, intellectually.
Yes, sir. Even when today I defend Sanjeev Sanyal for criticizing or making fun of the Bhadralok class, I get the pushback that I'm basically shitting on my own state, which other people won't do. And why don't I remember that our state is so much better, in fact, from other states? Because we have apparently, allegedly solved two problems which other states haven't, which is casteism and female feticide. We are better in that, so all else is forgiven.
Our state was actually up there during 1960s. Again, you can refer to Sanjeev Sanal's talks on
Hmm.
that. The GDP of Bengal was higher than the GDP of Gujarat
Yeah.
in 1960. Okay,
Yes.
and yes, there are many things to celebrate about Bengal,
Hmm. Of course.
which does not mean that you do not point to what is wrong, and what is, you cannot wish away a massacre by saying that you are culturally superior to the guy from the next state, which you
Yeah.
did with Morichjapi.
Yeah.
You can't wish away genocide. You can't wish away mass rapes.
Hmm.
You can't wish away horror at the doorstep, literally,
Hmm.
by saying, oh, I can quote from world literature, I
Hmm.
am culturally superior to say a Bihari or a Punjabi or a Marwari.
Hmm.
So I think that's hugely problematic if that's your argument.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
But of course, having said that, there are a lot of things that's great about Bengal. That's great about Bengalis to
Hmm.
be culturally to be. No, I won't use the word superior because see, I have spent a lot of my professional life outside Delhi,
Hmm.
outside Bengal, in
Hmm.
Delhi, Bombay, and also in Madhya Pradesh,
Hmm.
where I was an editor for 2.5 years. I will tell you that this is. I mean, people from other states necessarily do not think like that. Their yardsticks are the yardsticks of pretty much the rest of the world. So
Hmm.
you judge a person when that person is doing well professionally. You
Hmm.
don't have yardsticks like, oh, that person is culturally superior. These are things that's very typical to Bengal. And while I don't discard them,
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
think you have to be in the race, boss. You have to you whatever you're doing, your cinema has to compete with cinema of other states.
Hmm.
Your literature has to be talked about beyond your state.
Hmm.
You know your journalism has to compete with journalism in Delhi.
Right.
You can't suddenly sort of the phrase in Bengal, quote bang. You can't be a frog in the well forever and ever
Hmm.
because the world is watching. I mean, you can't be competing with five people and say, "Oh, I'm the best."
Yeah.
Five people all come from Bengal. You have to
Yeah.
be. I mean, talking about cinema, look at the cinema of Assam. Yeah, look at the cinema of Kerala, of Karnataka. I'm not talking about Hollywood here.
Yeah.
Look
Exactly.
at the cinema. Look at the kind of money their cinema is making.
Exactly. Look at the kind of money they are spending on even their low budget films. That's higher
Boss,
than our highest budget films.
a cinema like Kantara, I mean, forget all that. A cinema like Kantara, it's a film on a village. It's a film about village spirits. Okay, it's a film about buffalo race. A guy's conviction that I'm going to tell my story as honestly, as passionately as I possibly can,
Hmm.
made at a budget of 15 crores, goes on to make 500 crores. Can you imagine? There's nothing in that film. It's just the story of a village. You have those stories, but
Yeah.
your filmmakers are not telling those stories, or at
Yes.
least are not telling those stories in a way that they forget. Your cinema is not even going out of Kolkata.
Exactly.
It's restricted mostly to Kolkata.
Yes, sir.
Kantara's dubbed version in Bengali is making more money than your top film.
Yeah.
Forget all India figure.
Yeah.
Kantara, KGF are being dubbed in Bengali. They are
Yeah.
being shown in Bengal theaters. They are making more money than your cinema. So you
And that
can't
is
ignore.
somehow blamed on the Bengali audience that আপনারা বাংলা সিনেমার পাশে দাঁড়ান না.
হ্যাঁ না বাংলা সিনেমার পাশে দাঁড়ান না, but you need to give a product that people will want to buy.
Yeah.
It's an open market, boss. Everybody is competing.
Yeah.
You remember last year, there was this huge attack on Bollywood.
Hmm. Yeah.
The conversation before last year, conversation, this is 24, 23, 22, entire 2022,
Hmm.
the conversation was Bollywood is over.
Hmm.
And then Shah Rukh Khan came with Jawan and Pathan and all of those films.
Hmm.
And Bollywood was revived in a sense.
Yeah.
And then there was Animal at the end of the year.
Hmm.
But a year before, when South films were doing well, when
Yeah.
RRR came, when KGF came, everybody started saying Bollywood is dead.
Hmm.
That's reality. You have to go out and compete,
Yeah. Now they
right?
are involving so many southern producers as well in Bollywood. That's why.
Yes. So the Bollywood has woken up. They have realized
Right.
that the grammar of cinema, popular mainstream cinema, has changed.
Exactly.
So the point is that you have to, if you don't go out and compete,
Hmm.
then I mean, what's the point?
Yes, sir.
I'll quote to you. I love talking about film. Sorry, you're a serious podcaster, but I'll just make this last point. I saw a newspaper article in Bengal which actually put out figures, and in the year gone by 2023, while Bollywood made a business of around 5,500 600 crore total, okay, and I think the Kannada film industry made around 500 600 crore. The Tamil industry made, let's say, some 400 crore. The Kerala film industry made around 300 crore. The Bengali film industry didn't even make 100 crores. Can you
Hmm.
imagine? It's not even a 100 crore industry. And
Yeah.
I called it's not an industry, boss. It's the cottage industry.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean,
And
so what you are saying, Of course, you need to have self pride, and you need to sort of celebrate yourself, and you need to put forth your good points. You need to equally see where you are going wrong,
Yeah. And
right?
Anurag Kashyap called Bengali films Ghatia, and that
But
also
yeah, and I
triggered a
wrote
lot
a
of.
very strong article against Anurag Kashyap in the print. I said, Anurag Kashyap needs to look at his own cinema as well. Having said that, it is something that you should take very seriously, because
Hmm.
you are celebrating somebody like Anurag Kashyap because his
Hmm.
left of center viewpoint agrees with yours.
Hmm.
But even that guy is coming here and
Yeah.
calling you Katia. So where
Yeah.
are you? You are nowhere, boss. Even
Yeah.
people you think whose worldview agrees with you
Hmm.
are turning around and calling your cinema Katia.
Yeah.
See,
Even.
if a Sandeep Reddy Vanga would have called you Ghatia, then you would have said, oh, he's a right wing guy, he's
Yeah.
toxic, and Mr. Modi is supporting him, or whatever, BJP handles are supporting him.
Yeah.
You would still have escaped.
Hmm.
But here is one guy whose own cinema is not working for the last couple of years,
Hmm.
whose worldview you agree with, who you're calling in every film festival, who's coming to your town and calling your cinema Ghatia. You need to take a real hard look at yourself.
Yes, sir. And actually, today, even today, most non-Bengalis don't exactly know what happened in Morichjapi. They just know some insanely bad thing happened, massacre happened. Could you give us a small recap?
So what happened in Morichjapi was, the partition of the eastern side, the partition of Bengal did not really stop in 1947. Okay, the waves of Hindus kept coming. I'll shortly summarize
Right.
for you, the story of Morichjapi. So waves of Hindu refugees kept coming right till the War of Independence in the 70s. Now West Bengal did not have the capacity to absorb so many refugees.
Okay.
So what the center and the state governments agreed on was that there is this huge space called Dandakaranna,
Hmm.
where this temporary refugee camps will be set up, and the refugees will be shifted from temporary refugee camps in Bengal to Dandakaranna area, which was in central area,
Hmm.
central India.
Hmm.
Okay, and they could be involved in various kinds of government work, like mostly road building. Okay, flattening roads, building roads, those kind of work. So those things happen. If you fly to Raipur airport in Chhattisgarh, and if you come out of the airport, the first locality you see is called Mana Camp. Okay,
Oh.
there are Pakka houses today, but Mana Camp was basically a transitory camp for
Hmm.
Bengali refugees.
Hmm.
And if you go inside, now there are Pakka houses and
Hmm.
people. But if you speak to the father or the mother or the grandfather, you'll know that they're Bengali refugees. Almost all of them are Bengalis.
Oh.
Raipur Airport. Just do this. Go to Raipur Airport. Come out of the airport. Drive a little bit. On the left, you will see a signboard saying Mana Camp.
I
Okay,
see.
it was one of the biggest refugee camps in the Dandakarana area.
I see.
So they were sent there. Now, while they were being sent there in droves, the CPIM was in opposition. The left parties, not
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
CPIM,
Hmm.
CPIM, CPI, all of them were in opposition.
Hmm.
And they told these refugees that, look, boss, a bad thing is happening to you. Why are you being sent to central India? You do not know the language. The climate is different. What will you do?
Hmm.
This is Bengal. You come from what was East Bengal, which later became East Pakistan and is now and later Bangladesh.
Hmm.
So the the environment agrees with you. You can fish here.
Hmm.
There are rivers,
Hmm.
and the soil is multi-alluvial. You can farm here. You speak the same language. The dialect may be different. Why
Hmm.
are you being sent there? If we ever come to power, we are going to bring you back to West
Hmm.
Bengal.
Hmm.
Okay. So the refugees were sent to Dandakarana, but they had a hope in their heart that if the left ever comes to power, we will be brought back to Bengal.
Hmm.
And the refugee leaders in the Dandakarana area had maintained contact with the left.
Hmm.
Cut to 1977, the left comes to power. The refugee leaders send a delegation to Writers' Building saying that, look, boss, now you're in power, and had made a promise when we were being sent to by truckload and through trains to the Dandakarana area that if you ever come to power, you will bring us back to West Bengal. So now is the time. Bring us back to West Bengal. That delegation was completely ignored. Letters were sent, they were ignored. Now these refugees, most of them were very proud, strong people. Okay, they had by that time identified Sundarbans area. That, okay, this is the area where there are some uninhabited islands where we can go set up townships and stay. Right. So, and there is a theory that that particular island Marichjhapi was shown to them by left leaders themselves.
I see.
So when they were ignored, they decided that by that time they had done, they had kind of settled in Dandakaran area. They had saved some money, their life savings. So they said, look, we're going to take this money and screw the left government. We don't want their help. We will go to Sundarbans area. We will visit. We will land in Marichjhapi, and we will set up a township on our own. And that's what happened. While they were coming, the West Bengal government deployed police force. So you could make out from their tongue and from the way they dressed that they were not Bengalis who were coming from here, but the Bengalis come from somewhere else. Many of them were pushed back into the trains and sort of trucks and were sent back to the Dandakananda. But some of them slipped through. They made their
Hmm.
way to Morichjapi. It was a long, arduous trek, but they finally made their way to Morichjapi. And what happened afterwards was an amazing thing. So there were shrubs in the island. There was nothing in the island. So this great adventure took place, where the refugees started clearing the island of shrubs and started building huts. And they had a plan. They made a plan, and they would stay up nights, and they would take help from neighboring villages, and they would use the money they had saved from all these years of hardship and working for the government in various projects. And they set up an entire township in Marichjhapi, almost 6,000 huts.
I
They,
see.
yeah, they made and all within 6 to 8 months. They made a boat building yard, boat manufacturing yard. So there was a space where they could make boats. Okay, they could build boats. They had a biddy factory.
I
There
see.
were proper lanes. That township had lanes. So there were. It was a proper plan. And they of course had help from, like I said, my father was one of those people who went there, from various public intellectuals who were amazed by this story, that what's happening. They went and they gave some donations. They helped them with engineering ideas. This is how you can build the township. So, but uh, it was mostly their own ambition, their own belief, and their own need to, in a sense, to rebuild a home, because they have
Yeah.
been displaced from what is today Bangladesh.
Yeah.
While this was happening, the left front administration got very scared, because they thought that, look, boss, almost 1 lakh people has come here, right?
Hmm.
And there are other islands nearby, okay,
Yeah.
which are also uninhabited. So if this experiment succeeds, and if the other it's only some refugees who have come from Dandakarana, there are many other refugees. So suppose in other islands also refugees start coming
Hmm.
and building townships, and they are really pissed off with us, because we have not helped them,
Hmm.
and they are not even talking to us.
Hmm.
So eventually, over a period of time, it will be entire vote bank, which will help our political rivals and not us,
Hmm.
right? So they told the refugees, the government told the refugees that you have to go back, you have to shut down this island, you have to go back, because by cutting the shrubs, you are somehow disturbing the ecology of the island. Can you imagine, boss, 1978? Who talks in ecology of the island by cutting shrubs? The For all practical purposes, the refugees showed the government the middle finger, okay, and then started one of the worst, perhaps the worst massacre in independent India. There was first an economic blockade, whereby access to the island was cut off. There was no drinking water in the island, so they had to take boats and go to the next island called Mari to bring back water in pots. Okay, so they did not have water. They drank the salty water of the river, and children and old and sort of elderly people, they sort of had to eat whatever they could find, because there was no access to food also, because, like I said, there were police launches that surrounded the island, so you couldn't take your boats through them. And then a PIL was filed by Shakko Shen, a lawyer called Shakko Shen, who is also a chapter in my book. And Shakko Shen said on his own, he and his senior lawyer, they filed a PIL, and they said, you can't do this. This is horrific, to deny people food and water. And so after 15 days, that economic blockade was lifted. By that time, so many people had died, most of them children and elderly people. And then, but the launches didn't leave. Okay, so every so that but that was the beginning. Even if the court chided the West Bengal government kept pressure on the islanders to somehow leave. So now what the account says, so the West denies it, but what the account says, that every once in a while women would be picked up from the island, they would be taken into the jungle or into police stations, they would be raped. And some of the accounts said that in the middle of the night they would be sent back completely naked back to the island, okay, and through the jungle. Imagine. And then all these things continued. There were pitched some. There are also instances of pitched battles between the islander and the police. Now police are firing. Just think, there's an island, there's a river next to it. There are policemen, armed policemen on top of launches, and there on the river bank. There are islanders with bow and arrow and spears made,
Hmm.
very basic weapon, and you are shooting down at them. So imagine the casualty.
Right.
And when this also did not deter the islanders from listening to islanders into sort of, into somehow leaving that island, in sometime in May 1979, in the middle of the night, in large numbers, policemen entered the island, set fire to all the huts in the inside the island, basically burned down the township, forced people, and people died in that fire, forced people into launches. There was a transit camp again outside Kolkata. There were half burnt bodies, people whose arms were burnt or chest was burnt. There's a journalist I speak to in the book who spoke to a woman, very elderly woman called Phony Bala. I write a chapter called Phony Bala's Burnt Breasts, whose entire breast was burnt in the fire because a burning log had fallen on her. And this gentleman, this journalist, had filed a report based on that, Phony Bala's burnt breast, and they were sent back to the Dandakara. So that's the story of Morichjapi, the story that involved economic blockade, involved rape, involved bodies being thrown into the river, involved arson, mass arson, where 6,000 huts were set on fire.
Did they really feed like half dead bodies to crocodiles and tigers?
The body. So this is a theory which has been put out not by me but by a woman called Anu Jalias, who's an
Okay.
anthropologist. You can find her on Twitter,
I see.
who put out a paper saying that the paper basically says that the tigers of Sundarbans were fish eaters. They were not man eaters.
Hmm.
Okay, but there were so many bodies that were thrown into the water that the tiger mistook human bodies for fish, and they would bite into the bodies.
Hmm.
Okay, that's where they got a taste of human flesh and gradually turned man eaters. So Anujala's thesis is, and I think the paper was presented in a foreign university, Cambridge, I think,
Whoa.
that Marichjhapi massacre basically turned Royal Bengal tigers into from fish eaters to man eaters.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Now, the conversation that ever always happens between at least me and leftists whenever this Morichjapi issue is brought up, they just say no. So many people didn't die. 10 people die, and I keep
Yes,
debating no.
there is the
Actually, so
7
many
to 10
people
is the
died.
figure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the conversation never goes on to charging them for okay, even if it's 7 to 10 people, why did they die or how did they die? Uh,
7 to 10 people surely could not have died.
yeah.
You can debate the number because
Hmm.
there's no record,
Hmm.
but it's in. I mean, see the survivors, and these are survivors who did not, who I didn't speak to in one place. Okay, these are survivors who do not even today do not have access to a mobile phone. Somebody staying in Kumirmari, which is the next island to Morichjapi, and stayed there, cannot possibly be in touch, is not in touch with somebody, say, in Mana camp in Raipur,
Hmm.
right? So I spoke to a diverse group of people, and all of them say that it's way above 1,000. Some said 5,000, some say it was 10,000. Now there's no way to, how do you put a figure to something like this? If you're not been allowed to speak about Morichjapi, if an academic like Ross Malik, who has been working on the subject for so many years, have not been allowed to have his voice heard. How do you actually put a figure to it? But survivors say it's in thousands. Now, who do we listen to? Do we listen to the perpetrators, or do we listen to the victims?
Yeah. And
But like I said, like it
hmm.
can't be. I mean, if the victims, and most of them, I see. I the book had a format.
Hmm.
Okay, so I think there are 10 chapters, and of them 8 are of survivors. But I spoke to at least 20-25 survivors. All of them say it's well into the thousands. So it can definitely not be 10.
Hmm. And I know we touched upon this a little bit, but I'm talking about this time, especially about the celebrity artists, not just Bhadralok academics, but the artists specifically, who usually have some extra voice or who usually pretend that they have an extra voice. How could they not speak up until the only time they spoke up against CPIM was in 2011? when CPM was
Yeah.
all about to go anyway, like, or at least 2009-10. How can that happen?
I don't know. I mean, look, I don't want to sort of. I mean, I hear this quite often. So
Hmm.
there are people who say, and serious academics who say that this is a Morichjapi is an example of the left's caste bias. So the left has always spoken about a casteless, classless society. Now, many academics, Dalit academics, they say and they have told me in so many words that this is a prime example of the left's caste bias, since most of the refugees of Marichjhapi belong to the lower castes.
Hmm.
Okay, this wasn't the left, somehow the left, at least political left, the left that was in power.
Hmm.
They thought that these are people you can. How dare they do not listen to us? But I can't take names, but I have also had bureaucrats, who. So there was a book talk, Niranjan, in Bengal Club. Bengal Club, when the book came out, they invited me to speak on Blood Island, and I didn't know who I was speaking to. So there are a few of my friends, but I didn't know the crowd I was speaking to. Most of them were retired high court judges,
Okay.
and most of them were retired bureaucrats.
Hmm.
There was a standing ovation when I finished my talk.
Hmm.
I know there are gentlemen who came when I came down from the dais. There were gentlemen who held my hand and said thank you.
Hmm.
And they said, we knew this because we were bureaucrats in the government when this happened. So I said, sir, why did you not say anything? He said, we could not because we did not have the courage to go against the government order. So I asked one of them, but tell me one thing which I cannot put my finger to. Why did such a huge massacre take place? Why was such a huge massacre ordered in the first place? Okay, and this particular gentleman who was a retired bureaucrat, a man well into his, I think, late 70s, early 80s when this happened, 2019, the book launch happened. He told me it was just the ego of one man, Jyoti Basu. He said, Jyoti Basu just could not digest the fact that his government gave an order to the refugees that look, you cannot settle here, you have to go back, and the refugees defied him and sort of set up the township. So he said it can be explained only through the ego of one man, ego that was hurt badly. So he said, do whatever you have to the police administration, you get the refugees out of Morichjapi. But like I said, there are people who said that there's an inherent caste bias in the left. The left is hypocritical. It does not. It on the one hand it says that we believe in a casteless society, but Marijab is a prime example of how casteist the left is.
Hmm. Sir,
So you
actually,
don't know.
Sir, actually, that was my next question itself. That has caste really been solved if it was all Brahmin communists killing Dalits? And but you see, if so, go on.
I think. See, I mean, how do you measure this? I mean, look, there is no way you can counter the theory
Hmm.
that says that this was a casteist attack. It was, right,
Sir,
because most of the victims were lower caste.
yeah, I
But
think we can.
whether they were attacked because they were lower caste, there's no way to say. There was no way to
Right.
tell.
Sir, actually, the idea is that if casteism, as some researchers are now saying, that caste is nothing but status groups. If they
Yes,
are in fact status groups, then it makes all the sense, because
yes,
the Brahmin
yes,
communists are the higher in status, and they are not people
yes.
who you need to care about.
It was more than caste. I mean, it was this whole sense of people like us and people not like us. If you also see the
Hmm.
refugee, see, broadly, North Calcutta is the quote unquote is where the original inhabitants of the western part of Bengal state.
Hmm.
Much of South Calcutta, which is a newer now, much of it is posher also.
Yeah.
But if you see all these areas, especially where I'm speaking to you from, like
Hmm.
Jadavpur and Vijaygarh and all of that, they are primarily refugee areas,
Yeah.
right? But there were also a certain kind of refugees who came soon after 1947 or
Right.
46,
Hmm.
but definitely partition of India or a little earlier.
Yeah.
They were higher caste slash higher class,
Hmm.
right? But these were refugees who were masons and fishermen, and farmers
Hmm.
and tillers, right?
Hmm.
So there was this class caste divide from
Right.
the Bhadralok Marxist.
Yes.
So Morichjapi is a prime example of the othering by Bhadralok Marxists. Let's put it this way. So whether you want to say that they are castists or not is up to you, but it's
Hmm.
definitely othering of people not like them.
Fair enough. And
You
sir,
did not do this to people who came to Jadavpur or who came to Bijoygarh, right? Did
hmm,
you? You did not.
hmm,
Not all of them like bought land from you and sort of
yeah,
and settled down.
yeah,
Many of them squatted, and then over a period of time they became pakka houses, and
yeah,
they got land rights and all of that.
yeah,
But he did that to people who went to an uninhabited island far away, who sort of spoke a different tongue, who were from the worker class,
hmm,
right? So even if it's not a caste violence, it's definitely a class violence,
hmm,
and it's very ironical because this is the class that the
yeah,
left wanted to empower. This is the class that the continuously says that they speak for.
hmm. And similarly, Motuas who are also lower caste also face live
Yes,
in dire
yes,
conditions.
yes,
And sir, in terms of the number of speculations that we can make exactly why Jyoti Basu did it, is one of the theories that these lower caste people were going to be wholesale supporters of the alliance partners of CPIM. So CPIM, in
yes.
order to maintain their primacy in the left front, did this.
Within the left front, yes, that's also a theory.
Okay.
That's also a theory. That's a theory that's put out quite often. But look, boss, within the I'm not. When I was looking at the Morichjapi story, I was not really interested in the dynamic within the left. I
Hmm.
mean, I will blame the left in toto.
Hmm.
Even if you were a junior partner in the alliance, you should have spoken up,
Yeah.
right?
And,
You are in par. Maybe as a junior partner, would you not? I mean, a massacre took place.
hmm. Yeah.
Right. So just because you're a junior partner or just because your senior partner thought that, okay, you will be empowered if these people come and stay here in large numbers. I mean, come on, you should have walked out of that alliance.
Yeah.
You have blood, you have literally blood on your hands.
Yeah.
You let a massacre take place under you. So whatever the dynamic within the left front government, left front ecosystem was, it doesn't matter. What matters is that a massacre took place
Hmm.
and you let it happen.
Yeah. And they're still in that alliance even today
Get in that alliance.
after everything happened. Sir, how much of this should we blame on Jagannath Mandal's politics or him specifically? And do you see similarities with Jagannath Mandal's way of thinking with today's Dalit politics as well?
I don't know what today's Dalit politics is. I don't know
Jai
what.
Bhim, Jai Mim.
Hmm?
Jai Bhim, Jai Mim.
Jai Meme is like a AIMMIM slogan, but I
Hmm.
think yeah, I mean people say it in other spheres also. But
Hmm.
Jai Meme was, I mean, Jagannath Mandal did not say Jai Bhim, but
Yeah.
he said something similar. He
Yeah.
said that the upper castes were the upper caste Hindus equally discriminated against us, as
Hmm.
in the Dalits,
Hmm.
his constituency, and and Muslims.
Hmm.
But when he became the Law and Labor Minister of Independent Pakistan
Hmm.
after the partition of India, he saw that they are not lower caste Hindus anymore. They are just Hindus, and they are being attacked by Muslims.
Yeah.
So Jai Bhim, some version of early version of Jai Bhim, Jai Meme,
Hmm.
Jagannath Mandal himself had to almost literally run away,
Yeah. Practically.
right? So yeah, so I mean, Jagannath Mandal's politics is a huge flop. I have spoken to young Dalit boys in Bangladesh, in today's Bangladesh, and some of them do not even have not even heard of his name. Those who have,
Hmm.
at least one particular gentleman who's very aggressive and who sort of works for the Hindu community.
Hmm.
He told me on record that he was a villain.
Oh.
He says this is a Dalit boy in today's Bangladesh.
Hmm.
So
So
he said
that.
Jagannath Purnam was a villain. I mean, he was a fool, and he was a villain.
Hmm. What would be your message to those people who are still thinking in the exact same way that upper caste Hindus are the only problem in the world? There is no one else a threat in the world, in Bangladesh or in India.
I think go beyond narratives, do some footwork,
Hmm.
go and see for yourself the situation on the ground.
Hmm.
So it's very easy to sort of put out a narrative, or in this case have somebody else put out a narrative, and you just because you think it's sexy, so you keep mouthing it.
Hmm.
But please go on the. I won't take name, but there was this Harvard study group where I spoke where I spoke
Hmm.
on a Zoom call just before the 2021 assembly election, and this gentleman is a very famous Dalit activist and writer. So he told me, why are the Dalits of Bengal, West Bengal, Do you not? Why are the Dalits of Bengal supporting the BJP? Do you think they're not looking at what happened in Hathras? I said, look, what happened in Hathras was horrific, but you cannot tell the Dalits in of Bengal where to look.
Hmm.
Firstly, they may not even be a homogeneous
Yeah, of
community. There
course.
may be, there may be difference in voting pattern. But if a
Yeah.
chunk of the sizable chunk of them is voting the BJP, in today's day and age where everything is available to you on your phone, right? I'm sure many of them would have looked at what happened in Hathras, but their lived reality,
Hmm.
what they think they would get by voting the BJP,
Hmm.
rightly or wrongly,
Hmm.
is for them to decide who are you or I to tell them otherwise.
Right.
People do not vote based on what something is happening in some other place. People vote often uh, by taking into account what is happening in their immediate surrounding, right?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
the gentleman did not quite like my answer, but
Hmm.
but the gentleman is a theoretician.
Hmm.
So I mean, whoever is involved this in whatever way, whether it's an anthropologist, a journalist, so a political commentator, an activist, need to do a little more footwork. Need to not come with preconceived notions.
Hmm.
Theories are great. You need to act because the world is changing very fast, Niranjan. So you need to actually go. That's what I do. I so many years down the line, having done my journalism for more than 2 decades, I still go to the ground. I don't need
Right.
to. I have enough and more experience to write some articles and books.
Hmm.
I still go. I do the grunt work. I actually go to the ground. I see with my own eyes what's happening.
Hmm.
Uh, Sometimes what you see is not the whole truth, but at least I want to come as close to the truth as I possibly can,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think there is no alternative to that.
Yeah.
If you want to write an article, you can today simply ask AI to do it. Ask ChatGPT to write an article
Hmm.
for you on Hindus in Bangladesh. It will write you a fairly decent article,
Yeah.
right? Today AI
Yeah.
can do it. It
Yeah.
will from here there collate it and
Yeah.
put it to enough. You don't like it, you give some prompts, it
Yeah.
will do the article, right?
Yeah.
You can write a whole book like that.
Yeah.
So why would you still write a book? You'd write a book because you want to see for yourself what's happening, and what is happening is changing constantly.
Hmm.
So please don't hide behind grand theories and narratives.
Hmm.
Go out there on the ground and see what's happening. That's a problem I find with a lot of with a huge chunk of academia. They're simply throwing big words at you. You go to a book talk. You go to the launch of a serious academic book, and I go, and you see these big words being thrown around. But I mean, they know so little. I'm sorry, but they really know so little because they don't go, and you need to go. Yeah, you need to go to Sandesh Khali. You need to go and spend a day.
Hmm.
The problem is the visual media, the audio visual media. The moment you thrust a mic, the
Yeah.
moment the TV camera, people lie. All of us lie.
Hmm.
The TV is a form of it's hyper reality, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you suddenly become a hero or heroine,
Hmm.
you know, of a news bulletin. Okay, so
Right.
you try to sort of say more than what happened.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
try to make the truth.
Yeah.
But if you actually go there, if you spend some time, spend a day, 2 days, and try to soak in the sense of the place, actually sort of gain the trust of the people, the way books were written, the way magazine articles were written, even newspaper articles sometimes are written. I think you try and get a sense of the truth,
Hmm.
right? I think, and there's no alternative. So don't just sit. I mean, read as many books as possible, listen to, sort of muck up as many theories as you possibly can, but don't just rely on that. Do
Hmm.
your own research, and that research is the way to that research is through legwork.
Right.
Go to areas you're writing about. Please go and meet people you want to talk about.
Hmm. And just to digress a little, I'm actually a journalism graduation dropout. I dropped
Okay,
out in my third year. Uh,
very good.
so uh,
There's nothing to learn in a journalism school.
when I when I did want to become a journalist, I planned to do my masters in ACJ only because P. Sainath was there. What do you
Yeah,
think of him? He's still writing in
I
communist
can't.
literature.
Pichanath is a huge name. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to talk about people who are sort of
Okay.
whatever. I'm sure he's doing whatever he's doing, and there are enough and more number of people who listen to him, and who follow him, and who are inspired to come to journalism for him. I don't want to comment on his journalism or his books or
Hmm.
his research work.
Hmm.
All I can say is that I think all of us at every level, need to keep need to keep ourselves updated. Okay, so
Yeah.
we none of us are experts,
Hmm.
right? I mean, today's mainstream journalism is being challenged by people like you, right? You're doing a podcast show.
Hmm.
Tomorrow, God willing, your podcast show may be more popular than
Hmm.
a 9 p.m. bulletin.
Hmm.
Okay, by two
Right.
famous icons. So
Hmm.
the thing is, it's mass media is changing, shape shifting as we speak.
Hmm.
So I think we may have a great. Some of us may have. I do not, but I'm since you spoke about Sainath,
Hmm.
some of us may have done great work at certain point in time. But since the world is changing so fast, we need to keep ourselves constantly updated. We need to revisit our theories, our assumptions,
Hmm.
and we need to course correct ourselves as we go along.
Got it. So we have one question. Shouldn't Desai's government be blamed as well? And also Congress, who were probably in the state and knew all these things were happening. None of them also
Everybody should
did.
be blamed. Of course, everybody should be blamed.
Right. And
Everybody should be blamed, but surely people who ordered the massacre
yeah,
should be blamed the most.
yeah, yeah. And none of the opposition parties also make a hullabaloo about this for all these years. Even today, Congress
Yes,
is not really highlighting Morichjapi in any way.
yes,
And sir, during your 2021 book,
yeah.
what did you find out about Bengal, especially the post-poll violence, which is not really in your book, but what do you experience? Has Bengal changed since you left Bengal?
Yes, yes, it has changed since I left Bengal. Of course, it has changed. Some of the changes are good, some of them are not so good. But I think about the Bhadralok class, what I told you about the Bhadralok class, that they somehow are okay with violence when it is violence against people they do not like. They're somehow okay with that.
Exactly.
It's mind numbing, but it's true.
Right.
So if it's violence against people they do not particularly like, voters they do not like, they are somehow okay with it.
Yeah.
So,
The
so what was
deplorables.
said by Vivek Debroy and Sanjeev Sanan about the Bhadralok class in 1978-79 when happened is to a large extent true about the Bhadralok class today.
Right. We have another important question. What caught your attention with Morichjapi, with regard to Morichjapi, and what sources were helpful with writing the book? Were archives useful? Did foreign governments ignore the event?
Okay, so I somehow got sucked into the Morichjapi story from a very young age because one of the, like I told you, my father was one of the people who had gone to Morichjapi in the initial days of the settlement,
Hmm.
and he got to know some refugee leaders in the island. So when the crackdown on the refugees were taking place, uh, Rongolal Goldar, who was one of the top leaders of the movement, he came to our house in the evening, and he said he was hiding from the police. He had escaped from the island and he was hiding. He was in hiding, okay? And the police were looking for him. With him was his 15-year-old daughter, Mana Goldar. There's a chapter on Mana Goldar in my book. And he rang the doorbell and he told my father and my mother that, look, if the police find me, they will kill me. I don't know what they'll do to my daughter. Can you please keep her? So, till such time, there's some sense of safety and I can keep my daughter away. So my father agreed, and the girl stayed with us. My parents introduced her to me as a distant cousin.
Hmm.
And she was very different than me. I was a city boy. She came from Morichjapi. Before that,
Right.
she was named after Mana camp. Okay, in
Oh,
so yeah, so that's how she got her name. She was born in Mana camp,
I see.
so she was named Mana after the camp. So but we became friends. She would tell me bedtime stories, and those stories were about stories of Morichjapi. The crazy story that as a 5-year-old I couldn't make sense of them, but there were stories like men in uniform coming into camps and taking women away, and huts being set on fire, people being shot. And imagine somebody like me whose reality is very different from what he's hearing at night. I used to hear these stories, so those stories stayed with me. Fragments of those stories stayed with me. So I first found when much later, many years later, when I decided to write the book, I sought out Mana. I found Mana, and then I spoke to my dad, and I had other sources also by that time. I took 5 long years to find the book, but I thought that the way to enter the story is through the people who are involved in the story. I completely ignored academics. Ross Malik I read, but Amitav Ghosh's Hungry Tide,
Hmm.
which fictionalized the story,
Yeah.
I knew. I had read the book several times. Hungry Tide. It's beautiful. It's a beautifully written book, but I thought that the raw emotion of the survivor of Morichjapi should come out.
Hmm.
Okay, so what I did was I tried to find out as many survivors of Morichjapi as I possibly could.
Hmm.
So yes, all of this literature that's available, I found out. I even sourced books that are no longer in circulation. Okay,
I see.
books that were taken off the market, forcibly
Okay.
taken off the market in the after the incident.
I
Books on
see.
Morichjapi. I even found their authors and I read those books. But I thought that the my entry point into the story, into the book, is through my own interaction with the survivors of Morichjapi. I want to tap into their raw sentiment. It was a very painful process, Niranjan, because at several times during my interviews, and I didn't interview the same person once. I went again and again and again because I thought first time they may lie, they may make up things,
Hmm.
or they may simply not open up that much.
Exactly.
So same thing. So I befriended them, and twice, thrice, 4 times I went and said the same thing. So I'd lunch with them, I'd have chai with them, I'd take strolls with them, I'd go on expeditions with them, but I'd make them eventually at the end of it. I'd make them trust me enough to tell me their story in as much detail, in as much honesty. Of course, memory fails people as they possibly could. So that was my research. My
Right.
research was not books or academic journals. My
Right.
that was also there in the back of my head, but I did not want to be somehow influenced by them.
Hmm.
Blood Island is the unvarnished truth of Morichjapi. I say in a line there that there are manufactured lies,
Hmm.
lies that sound very good, like simply the lie of 10 people who were killed in
Hmm. Hmm.
Morichjapi. It's a clash between remembered truths,
Hmm.
okay, which may not be 100% accurate, because here are people remembering something that happened to them more than 40 years ago.
Yeah.
We forget what happened 5 years ago,
Yeah.
2 years ago. Here are people who they have had a whole life after that,
Right.
and people tend to, something this horrific, where rapes and your next door neighbor may have been killed, your own mother may have been raped, own daughter may have been raped. These things people try to push at the corner of their mind, and
Yes.
40 years have passed.
Yes.
So, but it's remembered truths, whatever percentage of truth is there in it.
Right.
It's their truth. So it's unvarnished truths versus manufactured lies. Manufactured lies have been told for so many decades.
Right.
Blood Island is about unvarnished truth.
Hmm. Shonjib Shanal actually mentioned this during his promotional tour for his book Revolutionaries, that why don't actually Bengalis and even in Punjab don't even know the horrors of partition even too much, because their ancestors never told
Yes.
them, because they avoided that memory itself.
Yes.
And
I mean, yes. It's crazy. You don't talk about partition. Imagine the number of movies in Bollywood that's made about the partition of Punjab.
hmm,
Imagine the number of books that have come out, and vis-a-vis the books from here. How
hmm,
many are there? There are books, but people don't talk about them. Most of them people don't talk about. Some academic book here with big words people would write, but
yeah,
where are the unvarnished truth that you should speak about the partition of Bengal? Where's the book on Noakhali? The Noakhali massacre of 1946. Where is the
hmm,
book on Great Calcutta killings?
yeah. The Great
The
Calcutta Killing film is finally coming out
massive,
from the Telugu industry.
yes, Makali, yes.
Yeah,
And I did a story for the print, and I spoke to Raima Sen. She's getting death threats
yeah, yeah.
on a landline number.
That
Imagine 2024, she's getting death threats because nobody. The poster has been released.
hmm,
Nobody has seen the film. I spoke to the director Vijay, and he said, "Boss, पहले film to dekh lo. See what I have tried to say."
yeah. That's actually the second question for you. What are the challenges that you faced from the ecosystem while publishing two of your books? Mr. Hindul Sen Gupta mentioned he has struggled a lot while publishing his book called Being Hindu.
Well, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I come from a lot of privilege, so I don't want to talk about what I faced. But yes, I faced a lot because see, I held top jobs in Delhi media. Okay,
Right.
so my last job was as the online editor of India Today Group.
Hmm.
So, and my publisher was HarperCollins. What could they have possibly done to me?
Hmm.
But yes, things like when the book came out, the book, thanks to people like you, thanks to great, I mean, I'm indebted for life to Vivek Debroy and Sanjeev Sanyal and Anand Ranganathan, all of them, the way they've supported my book. But you could sense unease among people who you thought are close to you, your colleagues, people who are tasked with book promotion, literature festival guys. It's all a big racket, okay?
Yeah.
Ecosystems work everywhere, so you could sense a bit of unease. Blood Island, I was very lucky because everybody reviewed it, in Delhi, everybody. So
Hmm.
I don't really care about what uh, some academics are saying here.
Hmm.
If you have, like I said, if you have even News Laundry reviewed it, Indian Express reviewed it, no, Print reviewed it, Hindustan Times did my interview, did a review, Scroll did a review, College Times did a review. So when you have reviews from places like this, you don't really care about
Hmm.
some
Yeah.
regional paper saying something about your book
Hmm.
or some obscure blogger.
Hmm.
But I think so. I have nothing to complain. But yes, are there enough and more attempts to shut you down, to discredit you, to somehow say that your books have a certain political leaning? Yes.
Hmm.
But my simple answer to this is, boss, just read the book. Read the book and see. It's not my theory. It's account of survivors. So are you saying survivors are lying?
Hmm.
So yes, but yes, I mean, to answer this question, yes, there is the subtle and not so subtle, uh, moves to somehow push me to a corner or to somehow to brand me a certain way. But I simply ignore them. You have to do what you have to do.
Hmm.
So
And
yeah, I understand people whose books don't. I mean, unfortunately, don't do so well. So I mean,
yeah.
there perhaps is some amount of jealousy also
Hmm.
that works. So they would want to brand my books a certain way, or sort of
Yeah.
try to predict them. But it's okay.
And do you have any relatives or friends who are CPIM supporters or CPIM party
Yeah,
workers?
yeah, yeah,
How
many
have
of
they
them.
reacted?
How are they? Like I said, many of them are no more friends.
Oh.
Some of them I can still joke
Hmm.
and say that that your guys got this done, and they maintain studied silence.
Hmm.
And but yeah, I have very few friends left, which is very unfortunate from that side, which is very unfortunate.
Right, I see. And in the interest of psychoanalyzing commies, are they
Yeah.
so possessive about hiding away Morichjapi because CPIM is sort of the last significant hope of communism
Yes.
leftist
Yeah. It's a
politics?
very. It's a very. Blood Island is a tight slap on their face,
Hmm.
right? Because whatever they say they are,
Hmm.
Blood Island is a testament to exactly the opposite thing.
Right.
Like I told you enough number of times, Ranjan, in this podcast, that I will not go out and say, even if people say that they are casteist.
Hmm.
But then you cannot stop people from saying they're casteist,
Hmm.
because they massacred people, most of whom were from the lower caste. So if
Yes.
somewhere were to call them casteist by showing them Blood Island, it would be true, right? I mean, how do you counter that?
Hmm.
Right. So
Yeah.
Blood Island is that dalil of how problematic they are from within.
Right. And how mentally grueling was it for you?
Very mentally grueling. Very, very, very mentally grueling. Extremely mentally grueling. I mean, I told you that grown men, women, there is in the last chapter of the book, I think in the last page itself, there is a reference to this old Brahmin gentleman, who was also there in Marichjhapi,
Hmm.
and he stays in Kumirmari, the next island.
Hmm.
Okay, and I was sun was setting, and I was at his house, and they had offered a wife offered me tea.
Hmm.
He was telling me what happened, and he was in Kumirmari. He had shifted to Kumirmari that day, and he said, I from Kumirmari I could see the fire, okay, and I could
Yeah.
hear the screams, and while saying it, he broke down. He's an 80-year-old man. So his wife came and folded her hands and said, "Please leave. I do not make my husband go through it." And I felt very bad for making that old gentleman cry by asking him that question. And I profusely apologized and I left, but that it stayed with me.
And are you in touch with any of these people? What do they do? What are their professions? Where are they in society?
They're trying to make sense of their lives. Not all of them are economically well off, but they are sort of some have moved on, some have done well. I have met people whose children are now journalists,
Hmm.
and they also did not know. They're very thankful
Oh,
to me because their parents did not speak to them about it. It's
I
my
see.
book that made them talk to their parents, and they said, "Yes, this happened." He said, "Why didn't you tell me?"
Fuck.
So in the beginning of the book, I have one person who was a junior colleague in the Dainik Bhaskar group where I was editing a English newspaper. So she did not know this, and her
I
mother.
see.
So her father is Kannada. Her mother is Bengali and
I see.
refugee from Morichjapi, refugee who went to Marichjhapi.
I
So
see.
yeah, so I mean, they said, I got to see my mother in a different light. I did not know this had happened, and
Right.
so imagine they hid it from the children.
Yeah. And sir, how much more time can you give us?
You can ask me.
Okay. I have lots more questions, and then audience questions are going on coming, which I'm ignoring. Sir, during the writing of your most recent book, your third book
Yeah.
about Bangladeshi Hindus, what stuff did you find out? How are they living? What's going on in Bangladesh with Hindus?
Uh, Again, a very layered question. Very difficult to answer. Depends where you are, what kind of Bangladeshi Hindu you are. Are
Right.
you a Bangladeshi Hindu who's a major general in the Bangladesh army,
Hmm.
or a colonel in the Bangladesh army?
Hmm.
Are you a Bangladeshi Hindu who is a MP or is a minister in Sheikh Hasina government?
Hmm.
Or are you a Bangladeshi Hindu who's a sharecropper in a village whose next door temple has been attacked and the idols have been broken, right? But I think, see, we have a friendly government in Sheikh Hasina.
Hmm.
India and Bangladesh are strategic partners,
Hmm.
right? Uh, and Sheikh Hasina is one of Mr. Modi's close
Hmm.
allies, right? And the stated aim of our party and our government is that there should be a sense of secularism in society.
Hmm.
The question which my book asks is
Hmm.
there?
Hmm.
So it is one thing to have great government to government contacts, which there is. It is quite another to take a long, hard look at the civil society.
Hmm.
Because if things were honky dory, why did horrific attacks take place in 2021?
Hmm.
Why do you, during Durga Puja, need to deploy security so that such attacks do not take place anymore?
Hmm.
Why are India's World Cup defeat celebrated as if Bangladesh has won the World Cup?
Yeah.
Why is, as you and I speak, a boycott India campaign going on? Now, not all of this is religious. Part of it is also anti-incumbency in against Hasina, which translate into anti-India sentiment among a
Hmm.
section of civil society. There's a
Yeah.
sense in Bangladesh that Hasina is in power because Modi wills her to be in power,
Yeah.
okay, by the support of India,
Hmm.
and that they do not like.
Hmm.
Perhaps understandably so, because no country, however small or big,
Hmm.
would want to have a sense that we are governed by another country. It's
Hmm.
not true. It's of course not true. It's a
Yeah.
sovereign country.
Yeah.
There's a sense in certain section of society that India decides their politics for them,
Hmm.
right? Now that's not a good sense to have at all.
Yeah.
That's not the right sense, but there is this sense,
Yeah.
and from that there is a sense of anti-Indianism that come,
Yeah.
and from that anti-Indianism sometimes become anti-Hindu.
Yeah. And we
That
see that.
apart,
Yeah. Yeah.
that apart,
Hmm.
there is a certain religious conservatism that has seeped into Bangladeshi society, which Bangladesh cannot ignore.
Hmm.
And I'll tell you something very interesting. A friend of mine, a Muslim Bangladeshi friend of mine, he told me that if the idea of Bangladesh that was put up during 1971 war, where the idea of a common language and culture was placed over the idea of religion, if that idea is defeated by the idea of East Pakistan,
Yeah.
right? The idea that existed before 1971, if that idea, the idea of say the Jamaat,
Hmm.
or the idea of the Razakars, the idea of the Al Badr
Yeah.
army, that
Hmm.
idea again is comes to the fore. Forget what will happen to the Hindus. There will be no place in Bangladesh for Muslims like me.
Right.
I think that's a very telling statement. A Muslim gentleman, a privileged Muslim gentleman,
Hmm.
Bangladeshi,
Hmm.
telling me that if this idea is defeated and the other idea comes to the fore, then a Muslim like me
Yeah.
will not have a place to stay in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think Bangladesh's civil society needs constant examination. What is happening? What are the forces?
Hmm.
What are the currents, countercurrents in the civil society?
Yeah. Atheist Bangladeshi vloggers have been getting chopped to death for about 10-15 years now. It's not even a new
Yes,
thing.
there's an atheist blogger in India, Asad Noor.
Hmm.
I've spoken to him, done a story on him. You can
Yeah.
look him up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Asad Noor.
Yeah.
Asad Noor, but of course, Asad Noor, I think Asad Noor's, I think one of Asad Noor's heroes is Salman Rushdie.
Hmm.
So he attacks the very tenets of Islam.
Hmm.
He sort of says things which many Bangladeshi Muslims
Hmm.
feel are against Islam.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he can't stay in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
He has sought refuge in India. He wants to go abroad.
Yeah. And actually, the atheist or leftist society of Bangladesh, I have seen, do take this up as much as they can. But the argument they face is that no, since there is fascist Hinduism going on in India
Yeah,
from the Indian government, therefore we must respond it that way. They are still going on with their hostage population theory,
because
basically.
you have to look at your problem.
Hmm.
Don't compare. You have to look at your problem. We all have to look at our own realities. We
Hmm.
all have to face our own truths.
Yeah.
This is an escapist route.
Yeah.
Whatever you think are the problems in India,
Hmm.
real or imaginary, you
Hmm.
have to look at your own country.
Yeah. Is there any solution at all? Can Indian government influence them to protect Hindus better, or is CA the only hope? Let all Hindus come to India.
I think I'd not liked because you can't choose your neighbors.
Right.
Pakistan is the way it is. China is the way it is.
Hmm.
I'd like to hope that this idea of Bangladesh sustains
Hmm.
somehow sustains.
Hmm.
There is a big question after Hasina who. It's not
Yeah.
just after Hasina who. It's also after Hasina what.
Hmm.
So I don't want a Bangladesh where all the Hindus have shifted to this side
Hmm.
and there is only radicalism left in the country.
Hmm.
That would
I-
be a security nightmare for us.
Right. Isn't Hasina's son also? I mean, pretty able in some ways.
Hasina, I don't know about the succession plan.
Hmm.
I don't know whether it would be within the family.
Hmm.
Uh, I keep looking at Bangladesh. I keep going there,
I
but
see.
I think Joy is very capable. He says the right things.
Hmm.
He's very modern.
Hmm.
He has an outlook which is very modern.
Hmm.
So, and I think he doesn't ever say anything which is anti-India or sort of
Yeah.
which is problematic to India.
Yeah. And someone is asking you, what do you make of the motives of this Pinaki Bhattacharya who runs this YouTube channel? He lives in
Pitaki
France.
Bhattacharya has done a podcast on me. Sort
Oh.
of put up my picture in one of his podcasts because I wrote about the boycott India movement and how silly it is.
Hmm.
I have nothing to say about Pinaki Bhattacharya. He's doing what he's doing.
Hmm.
He says that he's not on the payroll of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party.
Hmm.
There's no way for me to find out, but I think he's rabidly anti-India. If you have listened to his podcast, he's
Yeah.
very anti-India.
Yeah.
He's
And
very India is very anti Mr. Modi. He's constantly trying to pull down India. He's trying to boycott. He's the one leading the boycott India campaign.
right. Even today, I saw that even they are trying to boycott Chanchal Chaudhary, which I don't think will be successful. He's the Shah Rukh Khan of Bangladesh, as
No,
we say.
Mr. I think he stays in France. This
Pinaki.
gentleman, Pinaki
Yeah.
Bhattacharya. He should
Yeah.
just come to Kolkata, go to Amri,
Hmm.
see the number of Bangladeshi patients that come here for medical tourism.
Yeah. Peerless,
Go
Amri, all are filled
yeah,
with
all of
Bangladesh.
them. Go to New Market during Eid. See
Yeah.
the number of Bangladeshis there shopping.
Yeah.
We'll get his answer. He will understand how how impossible. It's mission impossible to sit somewhere and say boycott India.
Yeah. The problem is that he's probably not even anti-India at heart. He just thinks this is a good way to make money off YouTube because so many people will listen to it.
Yeah.
That's the same trap Maldives fell in. And uh, wait, I forgot my next question. Wait. Uh, there are so many things to ask. But anyway, answer. Yeah, this was one of my questions. During your 2021 book, or during the research for the book, and after the elections happened, the post-poll violence that happened, do you plan to write a book on that as well? Did you see all of that with your eyes?
No, I didn't see it with my eyes because I had a job in Delhi. So
Hmm.
I had to go back to
I see.
Delhi, and I had to sort of I was running the digital newsroom for the India Today group. But there are people who came. Nishant Azad from Organizer Weekly
Hmm.
is a gentleman who has done a lot of work, ground reports from Bengal on post-war violence.
Hmm.
You should invite him to your podcast,
I
and
see.
you should talk to him about. He's the guy to speak to
Hmm.
about that time.
Yeah.
You should call him to your podcast.
Okay.
He has. I keep telling him he should write a book, but he
Hmm.
has done a
Yeah.
lot of research on the subject. He has done reports on the subject.
Hmm.
He's also, in fact, the guy who's translating Blood Island into Hindi. It should come out
Oh,
this year.
I see.
Yeah.
And you see, the post-poll 2021 violence, everyone thought that same thing is going to be repeated in UP as well, and they were very disappointed that nothing of that sort happened under Yogi Adityanath. Again, it's the
I
same
told you
thing.
about this, about what I told that gentleman from Howard,
Hmm.
in that this thing that you can't tell a Dalit gentleman sitting in West Bengal that you should draw your lessons from Hathras. Every
Hmm.
state is different, okay?
Yeah.
Everybody's reality is different.
Yeah.
Which is why I keep saying, read up as much as you can,
Hmm.
uh, master as many theories as you possibly can. All
Hmm.
of that is fine, but there's no alternative to going and seeing it for yourself.
Right. Are
Because
you
the
aware?
world is constantly changing. Do not hide behind theories.
Right. Are you aware of any like tectonic ground level shifts in opinions because of the Sandesh Khali incident?
I think it's a very interesting incident. I don't know how much of it will be reflected in this election in Bengal, in the numbers in Bengal. But I think there's a very interesting article I read by a gentleman called Shubhajit Noshkar,
Hmm.
who was a Jalapur University professor,
Yeah, who
and he
calls for
said,
reservation in the Indian cricket team?
yes, he wrote that this is an assertion by scheduled caste, scheduled tribe women,
Hmm.
more than any political party gaining or losing from it.
Yeah.
This is an assertion of Dalit tribal women,
Right.
because they said enough is enough. We do not want anybody else to speak for us.
Hmm.
Okay, we will speak for ourselves. I found that article very interesting because it's a good point.
Right. Okay. Oh, someone is asking you. Do you think Bangladesh India's friendship is actually hurting the Bengali Hindu plight in Bangladesh? One, it creates suspicion in the minds of majority. Second, it doesn't allow Indians to interfere.
No, I think strategically, Bangladesh India friendship is a good thing.
Right.
You need some friends in the neighborhood. You have none.
Yeah.
I think.
Basically.
How can we say that Bangladesh India friendship is not? Look, when in 2001 the BNP came to power,
Hmm.
right? BNP Jamaat combined came to power. The rapes that happened was of Hindu women, unbelievable. I documented in my book. So to say that you need a government there which is not a strategic partner of India and that could somehow help the Bangladeshi Hindu, I don't think that's quite correct.
I see. Someone is asking a very interesting question. Will the Bangladeshi Hindus come to India given a free pass tomorrow? Are they willing? Are they aware
I
that?
have I have asked this question to some Hindus. I
Hmm.
can't speak for them because, like I said, it's 2 crore people. You can't 2 crore people will not think the same thing, and
Yeah.
it also depends on who you are, right?
Exactly.
There are people in the civil services in
Yeah.
very top posts.
Hmm.
I have spoken to somebody in a very distant district and somebody who's not so privileged. Okay. And I've spoken to him at a time when we were discussing the anti-Hindu attacks during Durga Puja. And I have said that do you ever think of coming to India? And he has said no. He said this is where I was born, this is where I will die.
Hmm.
And it's not just the Durga Puja, the multi-crore Durga Puja in Dhaka.
Hmm.
I urge all of us listening here to please go to Bangladesh and please make religious treks to Bangladesh. The number of temples there are and the
Hmm.
stories around it, the belief systems around it are tremendous.
Yeah.
There are so many sects exist in Bangladesh, and people who stay there in the interiors, okay, not just in Dhaka,
Hmm.
they hold on to their beliefs. Like there's a Loknath Baba temple just outside Dhaka,
I see.
right? It's very, very pious.
I see.
There is a Ram Thakur ashram,
Hmm.
huge Ram Thakur ashram. I've gone there, I've seen the devotees in
I see.
thousands. on a weekday.
I see.
Okay, Mutuas are headquartered there in
Right.
Orakandi.
Yeah.
So many, Lalon Fukir, so many sects of Hinduism,
Hmm. Right.
and the confluence of the two religions. It's amazing.
Hmm.
People there do not. They are. They are. They are. I can tell you this. With some degree of. It's a it's sweeping statement, but I have often found Hindus in Bangladesh to be more attached to their faith than many of us in West Bengal are.
I absolutely agree.
Really, really, really attached not just to their faith, but to their temples, to their deities,
Hmm.
to the stories around them, to the myths around them, to the belief systems around them.
Hmm.
They are not willing to leave that
Yes.
and come. At least not all of them.
Hmm.
There might be a percentage of people who would want to come here,
Yeah.
but not all. Definitely not all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, growing up in a basically communist atheist family myself in Kolkata, Bangladeshi Hindus seem to be a completely different species. The way they talk about Lord Krishna, Lord Shiva, it's a different ballgame altogether.
Very
Their
different
belief.
ballgame.
And sir, one argument that always comes from commies here is that, you see, we had a great Muslim neighbor. Everyone apparently has a great Muslim neighbor, but everyone was also kicked out. How does this occur? And were the people who stayed back because of trusting these Muslim neighbors, were they stupid, or should they even now are they being stupid to not come
I
here?
can't talk about them then, but I can talk about now. No, there are great Muslim neighbors in Bangladesh.
Hmm.
Niranjan, people are people. That's a problem that any kind of generalization makes.
Hmm.
Okay, there are 7.9% Hindus in Bangladesh,
Hmm.
right? It's nothing. It's not even 10%. 7.9%,
Yeah.
right? If all your neighbors were problematic, it would have been 2% by now,
Hmm.
right? But if having said that,
Hmm.
if it has steadily come down, then of
Hmm.
course there's a problem,
Yeah.
right? But to say that it is only gloom and doom is also not right.
Hmm. Okay.
There are also even in the 2021 violence,
Hmm.
I documented in my book, there were Muslims who took great risk to their life and limb
Hmm.
to save Hindu families from murderous mobs.
Hmm.
Cannot discount that. And this is not second-hand account. Okay, I
Hmm.
go there, I stay
Hmm.
in people's houses.
Hmm.
I see in villages, okay, not in cities where secularism is a thing. In villages where people don't even know there's something called secularism or a syncretic culture,
Right.
see people very joyously participating in Durga Puja.
Hmm.
They may not be praying because their way of praying is different, but they
Hmm.
go to the pandals, they sit there, they see the goings on
Is that in the villages, mofusils, or cities?
everywhere across Bangladesh.
I see.
Having said that, there are also villages, maybe in the next village, in the
Right.
dead of night, a group of men have come
Hmm.
and broken your idol and thrown it to the ground.
Hmm.
Maybe in the village after, there's a watch mahfil where the Huzur is saying extremely anti women, anti Hindu things,
Hmm.
almost prodding you,
Hmm.
throw the Hindu out from your village,
Hmm. Yeah.
or telling you that you should not go and go to a Durga Puja pandal because that's haram.
Hmm.
So if this is true, the exact opposite is also true, and that's the problem with reporting and writing on Bangladesh.
Hmm. What do you
Now,
think?
I have, and Sanjeev Sanal told me this, that we can keep talking about this, but look at the hard data. The hard data does not support my hope. The hard data is pretty damning
Yeah.
because there has been a steady decline
Yeah.
in the number of Hindus in Bangladesh.
Hmm.
Okay, so the hard data is damning.
Hmm.
But I come from liberal arts. I will always dwell in the grays. I do not have uh, the scientific temperament, the logical understanding of either my friend Anand Ranganathan or J. Sai Deepak. So I'll always look at the grays. I will always I'll always say there's hope. But having said that, the hard data is pretty damning, which is why I said that you need to take a constant look at Bangladesh's civil society.
Hmm. And how effective is their enemy properties act? It has a different name, I
No,
think.
I mean there's a different name, but I think they are trying to work around it. I mean,
Okay.
it has been diluted. They're trying to work around it. The Digital Security Act also that has been diluted. They're trying to work around it.
Hmm.
But more than all of these things, that since they're talked about, they are handled from Dhaka,
Hmm.
or at least some attempt is made to dilute it,
Hmm.
to sort of fine tune it.
Hmm.
But the hate that is that over a period of time that comes into hearts, there's no cure to that.
Right. And I know some Bangladeshi Hindus in Kolkata today who have come here, are waiting for the citizenship, etc., who tell me that their properties, they actually have those so-called nice neighbors who have
Yeah.
never harmed them, who have never threatened them, but they are not buying their property. Their relatives there actually want to sell those properties, but they are saying you leave anyway soon. A few days later, we'll take it anyway.
Yeah, that I have heard. Yes,
Yeah,
that I have heard,
that's
and
even more chilling.
that's scary and sad.
Yeah. Okay, someone is asking you, in the JU engineering department, there are some seats reserved for foreign students, mostly Bangladeshi Hindus come. Do you think similar provisions would help in other colleges in India in providing a way out for those people? So that they become sort of an aspirational model that, okay, let's just study engineering, then we'll get to escape.
I think a lot of Bangladeshis Hindu, irrespective of what religion they belong to.
Hmm.
I think, slightly digressing from there, I think
Hmm.
Bangladeshis, irrespective of who they are, what religion they belong to, know how to hustle better than Kolkatas.
Hmm.
Kolkatans, they really know how to hustle.
Hmm.
So I know Bangladeshi Hindus who are, forget Kolkata, who are sort of, doing documentaries and reaching out to people in Delhi,
Hmm.
to our ministries, relevant ministries in Delhi, and saying, let this be a Indo-Bangladesh venture,
Hmm.
or let us come under some grant of the Indian government because we are trying to showcase Hindu history and heritage.
Right.
So any kind of help, there are people who know how to hustle.
Yeah.
So yes, of course opportunities should be provided, and but be rest assured that even if there are a few opportunities, they'll know how to grab them.
Hmm.
It's
Uh,
a, it's a, it's a country that knows how to. Dhaka is definitely a city that knows how to hustle much more than Kolkata.
I see. Why the love for Rohingyas from our commies?
Uh, I don't know because there's no love for Rohingyas now. In
Hmm.
That's something I'm going to look at next.
Okay.
There is no love for Rohingyas now in Bangladesh.
Hmm. Yeah.
You know this, right?
Yeah.
The Sheikh Hasina government have been very magnanimous, but
Yeah.
now it's a big concern what's happening in Cox's Bazar.
Hmm.
The spike in the crime rate, the prostitution, the gun running, the gang wars. Rohingya is now a huge issue in Bangladesh.
What about their Muslim extremists? Are they also opposed to Rohingyas?
Uh, yes and no,
Okay,
depending on what kind of extremists you're talking about.
I see.
But yes and no. There is a, but it's not just Muslim extremists. There are a lot of people who have come out in open support of Rohingyas.
Hmm.
Are not paradoxically, I think it's quite understandable why you do it. Are many of the foreign NGOs. Okay, there's a lot of NGO money, foreign NGO money, also local NGO money that would want Rohingyas to be rehabilitated and somehow absorbed into the mainstream.
Hmm.
So it's not the Muslim extremists; it's actually a lot of foreign money
I see.
that's being pumped into the Bangladesh for rehabilitation of Rohingyas.
Yeah. And what about the Rohingyas in India? Are they going to be here forever? If the Bangladeshis are not getting, Bangladeshi Hindus are
And
not
you should
getting a
ask if
place.
you get Sanjeev Sanyal or Vivek Devroy, you should ask them. They are people best suited to answer this.
Okay. And sir, what about CA? What do you think of the argument that it should be extended for even Muslims, because after all they are poor Muslims who want to come here. They are escaping capitalism, and Hindus are escaping Muslims. So
I think
someone
the
is escaping
argument
the.
is what about disadvantaged, socially disadvantaged Muslim groups like Ahmadiyas, etc.
Yeah, that's in the context
Uh,
of Pakistan, but also poor Muslims also. Anyone
poor
who's
Muslim.
escaping.
I think people need to just. I have only one thing to say. I think people need to just go back into. In fact, I was writing an article on a very different thing, but I think people need to go back into and read history
Hmm.
before they say anything. It's before they make any loose comments. Just see history. Just see the conditions that existed in the years 1946 and 47. What our leaders, national leaders, were saying.
Yeah.
What are the promises made and the promises kept
Yeah.
before you do a either or.
Yeah.
I think many of us, we just talk
Hmm.
or we just tweet. We need to do a little bit more of study.
Yeah.
And you don't have to study thick textbooks. Just study your history books.
Yeah.
Just see the debates
Hmm.
that took place at that time.
The Liaquat Nehru Pact is enough to convince people of doing CAA.
Yes. See the percentage of Hindus in Pakistan during
Hmm.
1946-47.
Hmm.
See the percentage of Hindus left in Pakistan. Also see the number corresponding number in Bangladesh, East
Yeah.
Pakistan and then Bangladesh.
Yeah.
I think don't just talk. Do some
Yeah.
basic research.
Yeah. Sir, what do you think of the argument that you are basically punishing today's Ahmadiyas because in the sense of historical justice, that okay, their ancestors might have been wrong to ask for partition, etc. But what about these people? They are
I
ultimately they
think
are
I
suffering.
think I have to check, but Mr. Jesai Deepak has actually answered this question. He has said
Hmm.
that if you go to their website, you will see that that provision still is. I mean, they have not taken it down.
Right. Uh, okay. So you are saying that is the only argument because someone could argue that that's their political standpoint, which if they don't take, they'll be harmed even more.
You can't be you
You'll have to
can't
just
possibly
guess.
be you can't possibly be putting out something that vilifies the Hindu community and then ask for citizenship in a Hindu majority country. I mean, that's quite a bit of a stretch.
Right.
Yeah.
And what about poverty-stricken Muslims who are escaping Bangladesh for some reason or the other?
I mean, aren't there enough number of people in India who anyway come to India, also leave India for other countries for economic reasons?
Yeah.
Aren't there? I mean, nobody has really stopped anybody from applying for citizenship.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, sir. Someone is asking you: are top institutions in Bangladesh like Dhaka University, BUET, etc., are also highly left-leaning like that of JU Presidency?
Left, yes, left. I think only survives in universities now.
Right.
Uh, but there is a sense of left. There is a very strong anti-establishment sense of anti-establishment in many of their universities.
Hmm.
But like I said, I mean, left I think is popular now mostly in the university campuses.
Is there any secular opposition to Sheikh Hasina? Because this time around, just before the election, I was seeing a lot of atheist type of people, secular type of people, also vehemently opposing Sheikh Hasina because apparently they are not happy with the democracy, which obviously won't happen anyway. It's a poor country.
Yeah, but they are very insignificant politically and electorally, so it doesn't really
Okay,
matter. It doesn't
I
change
see.
anything. You have to be a substantial political party to sort of
Hmm.
challenge Hasina and
Right,
throw her out of power.
right. Someone is asking you, Deepji, would you be open to making a tour of North America?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Someone is asking you, I am from Tripura and my ancestors were from Noakhali, and in my family it was never mentioned by grandfathers or granduncles. Can you suggest any book on Noakhali riots?
I'll have to. You can read Being Hindu in Bangladesh. It discusses Noakhali riot.
That's his third book,
I'll,
okay? Last year.
it discusses Noakhali riot in great detail. In fact, let me tell you that the co-writer of my book, Avishek Biswas,
Hmm.
his family is from Noakhali.
Oh,
We had an opportunity. She is unfortunately no more. I wanted to give the first copy of this book, Being Hindu in Bangladesh, to Mrs. Pritikana Biswas, who was my co-author's grandmother.
okay.
She was there in Noakhali when the riots were taking place. She and her family had hid inside a school building when
I see.
murderous mobs were killing Hindus and raping their women. So I think this book starts from Noakhali then and now, Noakhali 1946 to Noakhali 1921. Please read the first chapter of Being Hindu in Bangladesh. In great detail, we have spoken about the Noakhali riot. The
Hmm.
first chapter of this book.
What about this argument that it was, after all, a proletariat Muslim mob trying to
Yeah,
kill a landed?
that's rubbish. That's complete rubbish.
Hmm.
I mean, Noakhali was there was genocide. I mean, what are you saying? These are. I don't even want to sort of address this question. I mean, please read the chapter. I mean, I still can't sort of bring myself to talk about it. In my book talks also, I avoid it. It's so horrific what happened.
Hmm. Their argument is that therefore poverty should be eliminated by eliminating capitalism so that people are
No,
not
no,
poor enough to do
that,
genocides.
no, that complete rubbish.
Sir, actually,
The-
during 2022 or 23, on the day of Saraswati Puja, a small riot happened in the Khidirpur area of Kolkata, and for 5 days, internet was blacked out, etc. And in fact, on that day, the so-called right-wing Bengali channel and the non-right-wing Bengali channels, everyone did not bring any politicians, especially like Republic Bangla even, but the intellectuals and academics they had on, they made that exact same argument on a right-wing Bengali channel without any pushback from the journalist. The one intellectual said that, you see, after all, if you go to the houses of these rioters, you'll see that there are no swimming pools on the terrace and there are no helicopters landing. And see, that is why poverty creates all these riots. But they forget to mention that the victims were also poor. They were not the ones starting the riot. The poor Bengali Hindus, again, lower caste ones.
If you read history, you'll see many rioters, people who ordered riots, and also maybe people who led riots, did have, if not swimming pool in their terrace, quite a lot of money. So I think that's again a lot of rubbish.
Yeah. Bangladeshi Muslims generally just say that Hindus move to India for better opportunities and that it would hurt the Bhadralok ego. What do you think about that argument?
No, I desist from making statements saying that Bangladeshi Hindus say this or believe this, or Bangladeshi
Okay.
Muslims say this or believe this, because simply because how can you speak for such a huge number of people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you say Kolkatans believe? I mean, there are people in Kolkata, forget Bengal, there are people in Kolkata who vote Trinamool Congress,
Yeah.
who vote left, who vote BJP.
Yeah.
Can you, or who do not go out to vote, who are simply not bothered to vote,
Yeah.
right? So can you say that Kolkatans believe? What does it, I mean, these are very loose statements. What does it even mean that Bangladeshi Muslims believe, or Bangladeshi? No, it's not such thing.
Hmm.
It's not such a thing. I know, let me tell you, I know Bangladeshi Muslims who are deeply pained by attacks that happened. I was in Bangladesh when in 2022 during Durga Puja, when there was a series of attacks. No lives were lost, but there were some temples that were attacked. Okay, just
Hmm.
before Durga Puja,
Hmm.
2022.
Yeah.
I was, I know people who are really genuinely pained by it.
Hmm.
That this should not have happened, and there are people who dress up, in very bright saris, and
Hmm.
they see it as a festive time, Durga
Hmm.
Puja, and who follow the Muslim faith, or carry Muslim names,
Yeah.
who genuinely feel happy during Durga Puja time. So I think, to say that Bangladeshi Muslims think that if their neighbors go to, no, I think that's a very loose statement. I think
Hmm.
that's the trouble with generalizing. You can't generalize.
Yeah. Actually, you made a very interesting point in context of this, that it's not exactly even Islam all the time, or Islamic radicals that are the problem. It's sort of nationalism also, because apparently out of the blue, all the Bangladeshi rock bands whom we have grown up worshipping, they are also anti-India. They are also hating on India, commenting on India's cricket team.
Interestingly, anti-Indianism is not always, though sometimes it is,
Hmm.
but not definitely not always anti-Hindu.
Hmm. Right.
Anti-Indianism stems from trying to push back against what they think is a big brother attitude.
Hmm. Yeah.
This is an important point to make. Sometimes it is anti-Hindu, not always.
Right.
Right? Some of the anger against Sheikh Hasina, some of the anti-incumbency, she 15 straight years in power, and she was in power before, so 20 years in power. There is bound to be a lot of anti-incumbency,
Yeah.
right? So some of that translates into anti-Indianness, because people feel, at least some people feel, India is keeping her in power.
Right. That's what happens when you make a fake country out of thin air. Uh,
Yes. So some of it is anti-Hindu, not all of it.
hmm.
So one should not mistake that. There is anti-Indianness for sure. I have seen it.
Right.
Okay, but it is to say that it is also because India is a Hindu majority country is not always correct. It is
Okay.
sometimes correct, not always correct.
Right. Okay, lots of questions here. If pre-partition of the sacred geography, Sheikh Sayyids, I guess he means in pre-partition of the sacred geography, Sheikh Sayyids or those who claim to be had most of the, if they had most of the land in Bengal, so from where did this mythology of Hindu landlords originate?
They were Hindu landlords. Here I come from a Hindu landlord family. There's no mythology,
Hmm.
but you should. These are questions you should reserve for uh, Mr. J. Sai Deepak. He has done some amazing work.
Yeah.
I'm not intellectually qualified to take such deep questions.
Okay. Okay, this is sort of a similar question. Don't you think revolt against the landed class is used as a cover to hide genocide of Hindus?
This is again a very interesting question. I think the answer to this question should be given by my co-author and friend Avishek Biswas, who has put in this train of thought in the book.
Hmm.
Because there is this argument that some of the violence that took place, if not all of it,
Hmm.
was because there was upper caste discrimination against both lower castes and Muslims.
Okay.
Okay. The problem with that argument is what happened after? Why did
Hmm.
the violence continue after partition?
Hmm.
Why did Jogendranath Mondal's politics fail? What we discussed,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So the failure of Jogendranath Mondal and his politics, the fact that he had to run away from Bangladesh, from East Pakistan,
Yeah.
proves this theory wrong.
Yeah.
But this theory exists, and it's come up again and again.
This apologia is very sus because it's like anytime someone gets beaten to death for any reason, they say that, oh, actually, chhele dhara shonde. We
Yeah.
thought he was a child abductor because this same apologia was given for Kashmiri Hindus and in Mopla riots as well.
Yes.
Same, identical argument. So it's
Yes.
probably a lie everywhere. There is a rumor that Bangladeshi Jamaat Islami and other fundamentalist groups want to create a greater Bangladesh with parts of West Bengal, Assam, Tripura. Is there any truth to that?
I mean, they can think, but there's the greater Bangladesh we should not worry about for now. We should just worry about their civil society. Keep a long, hard look.
Hmm.
We have very competent governments in both countries.
Hmm.
I don't think greater Bangladesh is happening just as yet. You don't know about the future.
Bangladeshi Muslims generally say that Hindus. Okay, this was done. Okay, next question is interesting. Is the Bangladeshi Jamaat-e-Islami anyhow responsible behind political violence happening in West Bengal, especially near the border areas like Sandeshkhali? Do they provide arms to Muslims here or Muslim radicals here?
Bangladeshi Jamaat Islam, I can tell you this was definitely part of the violence that took place in the months of November and December last year, just before elections in Bangladesh on January 7th this year. There was blood on the streets where pitched battles were fought by BNP Jamaat activists and Bangladeshi law enforcement officials.
Hmm.
People lost their lives a day before elections, 2 days before elections, 5th, I think, if I'm not wrong, 5th January, 7th January 2024 was the elections, 5th January 2024, a train was set on fire.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But I unidentified people. I think one guy was arrested who was linked to the BNP. But yes, there was Jamaat violence.
Hmm.
So I don't know whether that's for the NSA to say.
Uh, how much do you think Sheikh Shah Jahan has connections with Bangladesh today? How much do you think all these kind of Muslim radical, seemingly radical people who are criminals in West Bengal?
It's a porous border, boss. I mean, it's a pretty porous border. So if there is trouble in inside Bangladesh, if there is trouble for Hasina, there would be trouble for West Bengal also.
Right, right. And
It's
this
a
this port. Go on, go on.
no. I mean, it's a pretty people are constantly coming in, going out, right? I
Yeah.
mean, between West Bengal and Bangladesh. So if it creates trouble in Bangladesh, how can it not create
Hmm.
trouble? The Bardhaman blast, yeah. What was it?
Hmm.
Remember the RDX was found and
Yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah.
They did a film recently on it.
Oh, which film?
Uh, Wait, it's that Mimi
In Bengali?
Chakravarti. Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
On card, please watch it. It's a very interesting. I wrote about it also. I'm forgetting the name.
I see. And this porous border thing actually reminds me that this is an argument I've always had. Is there any way at all to prevent illegal immigration from Bangladesh?
Stricter border patrol.
Like we
I think
would
it's
need.
something Mr. Amit Shah and Asaduzzman Khan, the Home Minister of Bangladesh, keep discussing, but stricter border patrol.
Is it possible without like having para SF on every tree with a sniper?
No, I think our border security force is competent enough, but I think stricter vigil is the need of the hour.
How much is the accusation that BSF is corrupt as fuck and they help people come in in return for
I
money?
won't comment. I don't want to comment on that. You need hard data to. You need investigative journalism to say such things.
Okay,
But yes, I think BSF is pretty competent,
okay.
and I'd say this that stricter border patrol would uh, contain a lot of the problem.
Hmm. Okay, this is a great question. How politically powerful are Hindus in Bangladesh?
Again, very expansive question, but I can tell you about one constituency, Magura 2, where a Army League candidate, Pankaj Devnath, Hindu, defeated somebody called Shami Ahmed
Hmm.
from a Muslim majority constituency
I see.
in the January 7 election this year.
I
From a
see.
Muslim majority constituency, Magura 2,
Hmm.
okay, the in fact, Mr. Pankaj Devnath took the Muslim candidate who's very close to Sheikh Hasina
Hmm.
to court for having dual citizenship and got her disqualified from the election.
I see.
And then he fought the election and won it.
Right.
So, I mean, there are also examples like this,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
In Magura, one gentleman called Biren Shikdar won. He's
Hmm.
a Hindu.
Hmm.
He is extremely powerful.
Okay.
So, to say Hindus are not politically powerful is would also not be correct.
Okay.
But one can put out, Bangladesh is a very interesting country to cover.
Hmm.
Like I said, if one, it's true for the Indian subcontinent, it's definitely true for Bangladesh. If one thing is true, na,
Hmm.
Niranjan, the exact opposite statement is also true.
Right.
So, which is why to say, to say things with certainty
Hmm.
would be faulty,
Right.
because you will have enough and more argument to support the exact
Hmm.
opposite argument.
Right.
You know,
These powerful Hindu politicians, are they organized Hindus, or they are just
Interesting
individual
question.
random
A friend of
Hindus?
mine, a Muslim friend of mine, wrote a Facebook post which became very controversial. Shahidul Hassan Khokon.
Okay.
He used to be my colleague in India Today. He used to cover Bangladesh. He still covers Bangladesh, but for different media house now.
Okay.
He once wrote on Facebook that the number of Hindu leaders are going up in Bangladesh and the number of Hindus are reducing.
Yeah.
I think that's a very telling statement on whether most of the Hindu leaders in Bangladesh, if not all,
Hmm.
are more interested in serving their own interests or in looking after the community.
Okay. So same thing essentially what India always
Yeah.
faced. How do you support Bangladeshi civil society, the ones that are against Islamists?
I all support her, all support. I mean, more power to them if they are. In fact, that's the hope.
No, he's
If they are
asking how to
against
support them.
Islamists, or who support them,
No, he's saying, yeah, how to support those people from India.
how to support those people, I don't know. We need to constantly highlight them.
Right.
Sometimes, if you paint, if you say things like, oh, all Bangladeshis are communal, all Bangladeshi Muslims want Hindus to die
Hmm.
or Hindus to leave Bangladesh, come to India,
Hmm.
you do them harm, you do the cause harm, because not all of them are like that.
Hmm. Okay.
So as and when you get somebody who is speaking in favor of a more tolerant society,
Hmm.
you should applaud that person, because he is also going against the fundamentalist grain around him. I mean, what's his? I mean, he doesn't tend to gain much, right?
Hmm.
He's not under attack, but he's still coming out and speaking in favor of a fellow Hindu,
Hmm.
or talking about a sense of Bangladesh which is more egalitarian. I think there should be more support for people. We want those people.
Hmm. Okay. Did you mean the Rock the Beach movie?
Rock the beach, yes.
Okay.
I was
Victor
forgetting that.
Banerjee's character seems to be based on Pranab Mukherjee in some ways.
Yes, there's a Times of India report which says that when the Bardwan blast took place,
Hmm.
Pranab Mukherjee was inside his ancestral home, which is very close to the site of the blast.
I
That's
see.
how the genesis of the film took place. Please watch. Have you watched it? Please
No.
watch it. It's a very interesting film.
I see. Why is the USA against Hasina government?
Interesting question. I think they wanted something. They want trouble in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think a troubled Bangladesh would uh, would kind of keep India on tenterhooks, and thereby,
Hmm.
uh, I mean, it's just mischief. Uncle Sam's mischievous ways
Yeah. Because India and China are kind of teaming up against US, so there's no one to counter.
on this
Pakistan is
issue.
gone to hell.
Yes, yes. So, Bangladesh. So now a troubled Bangladesh will work in their favor.
Yeah. Someone is asking, is Hindu separatism in Chattogram taken seriously? How does it affect India?
The separatism in Chattogram is more right now, more I think in theory than in practice.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, sir.
I think we should wrap up now.
Yeah. The questions are over. All my questions are over. This
Okay.
was a. Thank you for giving so much time.
Thank you, Nayan. Thank you so much. It was wonderful. I think we kept
Thank you,
talking,
sir.
and it was very nice. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And we hope to have you back soon for many other
Surely,
topics.
surely.
And
Thank you.
I've realized that you have many other topics also you can contribute to.
Yes.
In context of Kolkata's decline, the Bhadralok class
2021. If
especially.
you want to postpone violence, you want to talk about, please
Right.
invite Nishant Azad.
Right.
He's from Bihar, but
Okay.
his heart is in Bengal.
I see.
He works for Organizer Weekly. A
Okay.
wonderful young reporter.
Okay.
Please invite him.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Hi guys. What a podcast. M Shastri, you can contact him on Twitter. I only contacted him on Twitter only. I don't even have his email ID. Inbox him on Twitter. Let's see if there's any comments here important. Well, extreme right wing is too dumb to understand that they love to cut off the branch that they sit on, and while left, just let them do it. That's Bengali mindset, screwing up their own people. Lol. What is caste composition of Bangla Hindu populations? Okay, I unfortunately missed this question. It's mostly lower caste as much as I know, as far as I know. There is Kali Puja in place of Diwali. I'm not sure what is Navratri. It's probably equivalent of some day of Durga Puja. Ram is not a popular date in Bengal, and Janmashtami is celebrated. And yes, Batman was killed by Mickey Mouse. Bhaiya, please talk about conspiracy to marry Hindu girls and make them pregnant and have child. Oh yeah. That's also going on in Bangladesh. Okay then. Thank you for joining, guys.